Okay. One time and did one word a day for a month. So it works out. It's almost 30 words. And so that was interesting. Yeah. They get a little confusing. So. All right. Let's go, Carolyn. Hurry up. Hustle up. Wide open. All right, like I said, no sheets tonight. Sorry, there's just too much to copy. And hey, we got Bibles all over the place, Tiffany. Just grab you one. Uh-oh, not one of those. We got plenty of Bibles all over the place, so find you one. Take one home with you. Take one home with you. Yeah. All right, y'all ready? Let's go. Genesis 17. Genesis 17. Okay, we ended with 16 with Abram marrying Hagar. Okay, now I want you to think through this again because I want you to remember this because this is very important when you look at Old Testament history, even into the New Testament, that Hagar was Sarah's maidservant or slave, okay? And where was Hagar from? Do you remember? Egypt. Good. Okay. So Hagar is from Egypt. And this is what you're going to see throughout the Old Testament is this idea of when you get in trouble, Egypt is where you go for help. Egypt is where you go. And you kind of retreat to Egypt. You go to Egypt. You go help. That's where you find your allies from. So but here's the problem with it. It's essentially either if God doesn't tell you to go there, it's always I don't trust God's provision. I'll trust Egypt. Okay? So we do have several times where God does say, go to Egypt, like Jesus. Joseph is told, get your son, get out of here, and what? Go to Egypt. Okay? But that's the exception to the rule. Okay? Every other time, Egypt is always seen as, I don't trust God, I'll go there for help. And so we see this here with Hagar, the Egyptian maidservant, that Abram, instead of trusting God, or better said, Sarah, not trusting God, says here, essentially, go to Egypt and you can get the provision you don't trust God to give you. All right, is everybody cool with that? Okay, so she has a son, and what's his name? Ishmael. All right, do you remember what Ishmael means? Shema El. Shema, to hear. El is God, the God who hears. Okay. If you've ever heard the Shema, something the Jewish people say from Deuteronomy 6, the Shema begins with what word? Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. So that first word, hear, is why we call it the Shema, because it's the Hebrew word Shema. So it means Ishmael. He's going to be described as a wild donkey, okay? And not that term when you get an old school version of the Bible, which is really funny for kids to read, okay? But you have this, he's going to be always at odds against his brothers. And when you consider that Ishmael is essentially the father of the Arab nations, you see that conflict has continued and continued and continued, okay? Now, how old was Abram when Ishmael was born? Y'all remember? 86 years old, okay? So at 85-ish, 10 years into the promise, okay, he kind of gives up, goes to Egypt, or Sarah kind of gives up, okay? Ishmael's born in 86, okay? And that's how the chapter 16 ends. Everybody with me? Okay? Now, first words of 17 are what? When Abram was how old? 99 years old, okay? So what does that tell you in between chapter 16 and chapter 17? What do we have? From when he was 86 to 99, what do we get? Yes, we get 13 years. Good job. Here's a math teacher right there, if I've ever seen one. All right. And what happens in those 13 years? I mean, from the last word of 16 to the first word of 17, what happens? What did Abram get when he trusts in Egypt and doesn't trust God? What does he get from God? silence. All right? Yeah, we get this. We get 13 years of silence when God just says, you know what? And who knows, it may have been the next year or something, but what happens when we give up on God, when we sort of go, you know what, I just got to trust in Egypt. David does this. I want to say, I can't remember the verse. I'm going to quote it wrong. It's somewhere in 1 Samuel late, 23, 24, 25. David says, someday Saul's going to catch up with me. I'm going to go and live with the Philistines. And I think that just crushed God's heart because this was the one that he was preserving. Remember, David had gone into Moab, and God said, no. You can't stay in Moab. That's safe. That's base. I need the Psalms written. Get back into Judea and run for your life. And I will maintain you, and I will save you because I've anointed you to be king. And at some point, again, I think it's 23, 24, 25. Don't hold me to that. He says, someday Saul's going to get me. I'm going to go live with the Philistines. Do you see that quit? And again, it's that same geographical direction. I'm going to go to the south where I know how I can be protected. Okay? And again, what do you get in that time? You get the silence of God. Be very careful with that. All right? So he's 99 years old, and the Lord appeared to him, which he hasn't done in 13 years, saying, I am God Almighty. He had to introduce himself again. All right? If you haven't seen God in 13 years, you forget what he looks like? I would hope not. Live in my presence and be blameless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell face down, and God spoke with him. As for me, my covenant is with you. You will become the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram, but your name will be what? Abraham. Finally, we can call him Abraham and not try and continue to remember to say Abram and not Abraham, okay? For I will make you the father of many nations, and I will make you extremely fruitful and make nations and kings, very important, come from you. I will keep my covenant between me and you and the future offspring throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant to be your God and the God of your offspring after you. And to you and your future offspring I will give the what? Land, okay? We said over and over, what's the covenant? What's the stipulation of the covenant? What's he going to give them? I'm going to give you offspring. And I'm going to give you what? Land. I promise to give you this land. Therefore, we call it the promised land. I know. Some people are like, wow, poof, that just hit me. This is land that was promised to our offspring. Okay? Now, how many offspring does Abraham have at this point? Abraham, excuse me. 1/2-ish, kind of. All right? Kind of the Egyptian kind of side of this. But he's not talking about that one. All right, there's still an offspring yet to come. Verse 8, and to you and your offspring I will give the land where you're residing, all the land of Canaan, as an eternal possession. Eternal meaning what? Eternal. For how long? So if God gave it to Abraham and his descendants, who does the land of all the land of the Canaanites, or the land of Canaan, belong to? Israel, okay? And again, that was reestablished by man in 1948, okay? Carolyn, you remember that, right? you no, she doesn't at all. So that was like 20 years after you were born, right? Yeah, me too. All right? No, but this is an eternal possession. And that's why a lot of the prophecies we think are going to start to kind of fall in line because the land has been reestablished into the hands of the Israelites after thousands of years, okay? 9, God also said to Abraham, all right? That was the fun part. You get land, you get offspring. Here's the, okay, this is your part, which may be a little uncomfortable, all right? God also said to Abraham, as for you, you and your offspring after you throughout your generations are to keep my covenant. And this is my covenant which you are to keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every one of your males must be circumcised, okay? You must circumcise the flesh of your foreskin to serve as a sign of the covenant between me and you. We always get these promises. We always get the signs, promises and signs, okay? And so this concept of circumcision, which I always wonder if Abraham knew exactly what he was talking about, or if he went, what do you mean by circumcising something? Because that doesn't sound good, okay? but that's sort of the sign of it was to create a distinguishing mark, okay? We were looking at, in 242 this past week, Paul tells the Corinthians, if you are circumcised, do not try to be uncircumcised. I know, and everybody goes, huh? Yeah. So those of us my age and older, go to the Friends episode when Joey is trying to be uncircumcised again. So if you've never seen that episode of Friends, it's just funny, okay? I'll just leave it at that. Sorry, that's going to make you laugh the whole time. I got to get off circumcision. Okay, got to move past it. Okay, all right, everybody, all the males are got to be circumcised. Verse 11, you must be circumcised of the flesh of your foreskin to serve as a sign of the covenant. This is okay, I can tell he's one of us, okay? Very hard to, essentially to hide this, very hard. It's clearly a distinguishing mark, okay? No real two ways about it, all right? 12, throughout your generations, every male among you at 8 days old. What else happens at 8 days old? You get a name, okay? So in the Jewish males, they are circumcised and given a name at 8 days old, which is going to be really interesting for David's kid that's born to he and Bathsheba, because he dies before the 8th day. So therefore, he is not circumcised. Therefore, he is somewhat removed from the covenant, but also he doesn't have a name, which means he didn't really exist. Okay, does that make sense? In the concept of name in the Old Testament is huge. Okay, 12, 8 days old to be circumcised. This includes a slave born in your house, one purchased with money from your foreigner. The one who is not of your offspring, a slave born in your house, as well as one purchased with money, must be circumcised. And my covenant will be marked in your flesh. Okay, do you see that idea? This idea of a distinguishing mark. We see that with the Passover. With the Passover, what created the distinguishing mark over their house? The blood over your doorframe will create a distinguishing mark. Okay, so a Jewish male circumcised would be regarded as, yes, you are Jewish. And if you weren't, you were to be cut off from your people and essentially removed from your Jewish heritage at that point, which is a big deal as the called people of God. Okay. 14 then says that if any male is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that man will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Okay. Very interesting. When they are leaving Egypt and they are about to go into the promised land, they have a ceremony because they had not circumcised their children while they were in Egypt in slavery. And so there is a passage, I want to say it's like Joshua 3 or 4, something like that, that they call this the Hill of Foreskins, where they had a mass circumcision of everybody that had not been circumcised. And I thought, no, I don't want to go that. Gibeah Ha'araloth. I still remember that word because it is stuck in my head. The Hill of Foreskins. It's like, ooh, what is that? Might step in that right there. That's just nasty. All right, let's keep going. Again, having too much fun in Genesis around here. Okay? All right, 15. God said to Abraham, so change of subject. All right, we've got the circumcision thing. Whitney, little people, you got it? I don't know. She's got the door? You got her? Okay. Sorry, I just saw the door moving and I saw little feet. Okay? As for your wife Sarai, okay? Do not call her Sarai, for Sarah will be her name. All right, same idea. You add the the father to this thing. Will be her name. I will bless her. Indeed, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will produce nations, kings. Again, we get that word. Of people will come from her. And we know this line of David eventually reigning in the person of Christ is going to be this kingly reign that's going to come from them. Okay? I was going to say something, and I totally slipped my head right there. Okay. What was I going to say? Okay, I'm going ahead. All right. 17. Oh, how old is Sarah? If Abram is 99, how old is Sarah? 89. She's 10 years difference. Okay, so if you didn't remember, you can look back in 12 or something like that. So she's 89. Okay, at 65, she ain't going to have kids. 89, how's this working? It's all good, right? It's all good, okay? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all right. And it's amazing. He has faith in it now. He still has faith in it now. Abram fell face down. Then he laughed. Good idea, guys? Do you laugh when God says your wife's going to have a baby at 89? He laughed and said to himself, which you never do around God, okay? Because never ask the Pharisees. How often do the Pharisees think something to themselves? And Jesus just nails them on it. So never think around God. Just a rule, okay? Can a child be born to a 100-year-old man? Can Sarah, a 90-year-old woman, give birth? So Abram said out loud, evidently, to God, if only Ishmael were acceptable to you. How did that feel? God, I made a way. Adam and Eve saying, but the fig leaves, they work fine for a while. I've fixed it, God. Don't you understand? I don't need you. I've fixed it. And he's asking what? God, let my fix be the thing rather than your provision. And aren't you glad we don't do that kind of stuff ever? So, 19, but God said, no, your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac, which means what? Laughter. Isaac, all right? It means to laugh. I will confirm my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his future offspring. Now, what you're going to see is Abraham gets this promise of land and offspring. God's going to appear to Isaac. I'm going to establish my covenant with you of land and offspring. And then Jacob comes along, and I'm going to confirm my covenant with you of land and offspring. That's why we call him the God of what? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, all this stuff. We stop right there because those are the ones that received a theophany, a God appearance of the covenant. Okay? Everybody with me? Okay. All right. It's going to be hard. 20. As for Ishmael, don't worry, he'll be fine. 21. But I will confirm my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year. When he finished talking with him, God withdrew from Abraham. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael and all the slaves born in his house, circumcised them. Okay? Good enough for 17? Good. 18. Then the Lord appeared to Abraham, at the oaks of Mamre. All right? Mamre was a guy. He's a Hittite. While he was sitting in the entrance of his tent during the heat of the day, he looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. Okay? You got to do a little math on this. Okay? We got 3 men appearing. Okay? Now, when it says the Lord appeared to him and there were 3 men standing there, you need to understand that's the Lord and 2 angels, and we'll see this kind of bear out. But I just want to give you the ending before you see it, just so you don't lose track of who this is. 3 men standing. When he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to meet them and bowed down to the ground. Then he said, my Lord, if I found favor in your sight, please not go past your servant. Let a little water be brought, that you may wash your feet, rest yourselves under the tree, and I will bring a bit of bread so that you may strengthen yourself. This is why you have passed your servant's way. Later, you can continue on. And yes, do as you have said. So Abraham hurried and prepares a meal and tells everybody, quick, hurry up. And they provide the meal and serves them, okay? Now, this is a thing that's in the Middle Eastern culture, the concept of hospitality. And hospitality in the Greek is the word philoxenion, all right? Philo means what? Phileo. Anybody remember phileo? Philadelphia is the what? Of love, brotherly love, okay? Philadelphia is love your brother, okay? So this idea of philoxenion is what? To love what? Xenos. You may know what xenos is? Xenophobe is afraid of what? Strangers. Okay? Is that okay? Yeah. Xenos is something that's strange. You ever heard people say, well, you're just xenophobic. People, you don't like the immigrants, all right? So you're xenophobic. You just like your own people. So to be philoxenion, and this is why I always laugh about the translation of Romans 12-ish, somewhere in there, 15, 16. It says practice hospitality. I'm like, wow, that'll get you in the fields right there, to practice hospitality. I get the picture of grandma with the doily with like a cup of hot chocolate. That's my practice hospitality. It literally means chase down people, chase down strangers to love on them. Pursue strangers so that you can demonstrate your love for them. We used to always say this when we were going to the homeless shelters in Atlanta. We used to serve at the homeless shelter once a month. And our big thing was, Diocontus Philisinian, Diocontus Philisinian. Pursue the strangers so that you can distribute love to them, all right? Which kind of sounds creepy sometimes, but that was the idea. And what does he do here? He pursues these strangers, because we really don't have any indication that he knows who this is, all right? He may have, we just don't have any indication that he does. But he chases these strangers down so that he can love on them, which is exactly the concept from Romans 12, okay? The question, he's serving them under the tree in verse 9. Where's your wife Sarah? They asked. There in the tent, he answered. The Lord said, I will certainly come back to you in about a year's time, 9 months-ish, and your wife Sarah will have a son. Now, Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent behind him, and Abraham and Sarah were old and getting on in years. Yes, I would say so. Sarah had passed the age of childbearing, okay? So how do you know you're past the age of childbearing? Is that like a number out there? Do we need to go there? No. Okay, we'll just stop with that inference and y'all kind of pick up from there. Okay, good. 12, so she does what? Not only does Abraham laugh, but she laughed to herself. After I become shriveled up, which is very lovely concept to think about, shriveled up and my Lord is old, my Adonai, my master, essentially, my mister, right? And my mister is old, will I have this delight? Will I have this pleasure, this arestos, this good thing? But the Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? So, husband, why did your wife just laugh like you did just a little while ago? Saying, can I really have a baby when I'm old? Is anything impossible for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will come back to you in about a year, and she will have a son. Sarah denied it. I did not laugh, she said, because she was afraid. And God goes, no, you laughed. I love this interaction right here, all right? It's not this God of, thou shalt, and the booming voice. No, it's like, I didn't laugh. Yes, you did. No, you did. No, I didn't. I promise you did laugh. I saw you. And we're going to call your kid Isaac because that's going to be funnier than the fact that you laughed. And everybody's going to laugh because your kid is named She Laughed. All right? And it's going to be this ongoing joke for 4,000 years in Bible studies all over the world. All right? That your kid is laughter, that you laughed. Okay? And it just kind of leaves it at that. No, you didn't. You laughed. All right, let's move on. Okay? 16. The men got up from there and looked out over Sodom. And Abraham was walking with them to see them off. So they're looking out towards Sodom. Over is not I don't like that word. It's towards Sodom because he's up in the Jordan Valley and he's looking south towards Sodom. Abraham was walking with them, the three, to see them off. And the Lord said, one of the three, the Lord said, should I hide from what I'm about to do from Abraham? Abraham's become a great and powerful nation. All the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. Very important. That's from chapter 12, right? Part of the blessing, we'll actually talk about this on Sunday, part of the covenant blessing that we're going to talk about is all the nations will be blessed through him. That's the person of Christ who redeems all of us. So the blessing comes through him. For I have chosen him so that he will command his children, his house after him, to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Why not say to just follow the commandments? Because he's going to be training them up to do what is right and just. Why doesn't he say, because he'll train them up to follow the commandments or the law? There is none. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. Somebody's paying attention. All right, yeah, we're still 400 years away from the law, okay? So what's the standard? To do what is what? Right and just. Righteous and just. So to do justice is not to do harm to other people. And to righteous is to do what is right in the eyes of God, okay? To love God and to do what? Love other people. You see how God is so consistent. God is so consistent. Righteous and justice is to love God and to love other people, okay? This is how the Lord will fulfill to Abraham what he has promised. And the Lord said, the outcry from whom? I don't know. Against Sodom and Gomorrah is immense. How big of a word is immense here? Yeah, if someone's praying against you and it's immense, God's going, I can't handle all the people that are complaining about you, okay? You're doing something wrong, okay? And their sin is extremely serious. And again, how do you judge something to be sin at this point? Is it a violation of a commandment? A violation of the law? No, it's not right or just. Okay, see that? I will go down to see if what they have done justifies the cries that have come up to me. If not, I'll find out. The men turned from there and went towards Sodom, and while Abram remained standing before the Lord, Abraham stepped forward and said, will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Now, who's in Sodom? Lot. The creepy little nephew that should have stayed back in Ur of the Chaldeans, right? So he has moved there. So when Abraham starts to negotiate, what's on his mind? Yeah, Lot, his nephew, okay? So he's going to negotiate. What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep away instead of sparing the place for the sake of 50 righteous people who are in it? All right, and he keeps going through. He negotiates, and what does he get to? Is 45, 40, 30, 20? Can I ask one more time? How about just 10? And God goes, all right. I know exactly how many righteous people, and it ain't 10. All right? Which should tell you something. He starts at 50, ends up at 10, and God's still going, we can keep going. You want to go 5? How about 2? How about, okay, 2's where I'm going to stop because 1's the only one left. All right? And I don't know about the kids. Well, they turn out to be train wrecks too. Okay? Last verse in 18 says, and he answered, I will not destroy it on account of 10. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he departed, and Abraham returned to his place. Now, what does this tell you about God that he negotiates? He loves him. All right? What else? He does listen. Is he interactive? I think sometimes we have this God, we have this deist God. There's a thing called the watchmaker theory, that God is the watchmaker. He just cranked up the world, and he just let it run. And that's what it's doing. And God is not interactive at all, not passive at all, doesn't interact at all. But you see him sitting here negotiating with Abraham. All right? Don't ever separate yourself from this type of God right here. Because when you do, what's the point of prayer? What's the point of speaking your heart? All right? This is the beauty of prayer, that we get to share our heart. And the assurance we have from God is what? That he answers us? No. That he hears us and he is good. We don't need anything else. God hears us and God is good. That's all we need to know. All right? We let him handle the rest. All right, 19. So the 2 angels entered Sodom. Okay, so we started with how many people? We had 3 people. We have the Lord and what? The 2 angels. So the 2 angels entered Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting at Sodom's gate. Now, who sits at the gate? Who sits at the city gate? There's a combination. You can kind of go either way. This is either where the honored men sit and they handle business at the city gate. This is also where the beggars sit along the road. So it just depends on if you're inside the gate or if you're outside the gate. The honored men sit inside the city gate. The beggars sit outside the city gate, okay? So we're not sure where Lot fits into this thing, but he was a very wealthy man, so I'm guessing it's on the inside. When Lot saw them, he got up to meet them. Does that sound familiar? Who else gets up to meet him? All right, we get this Diacontus Philisinian, this idea of hospitality. He bowed his face to the ground and said, my lords, turn aside, my masters, my Adonais, turn aside to your servant's house, wash your feet, spend the night. You can get up early and go on your way. No, they said, we would rather spend the night in the square, all right in the middle of town. But Lot urged them so strongly that they followed him and went into his house, prepared a meal, baked bread for them, and they ate. Verse 4, but before they went to bed, the men of the city of Sodom. Now, how many? What does it say? All of the men, some of the men, a few of the men, 2 of the men? The men. Implication? All. Yeah. All the men of the city of Sodom, both young and old, the whole population. Does that narrow it down for you? Yeah. Surrounded the house. These are freaky people, all right? They called out to Lot and said, where are the men who came to you tonight? Send them out to us so that we can lie with them. All right? I'm being polite there, okay? But I'm being literal too. 6, Lot went out to them. Watch this. This is crazy. Lot went out to them at the entrance and shut the door behind him. He said, "Don't do this evil, my brothers. Look, I've got 2 daughters who haven't had sexual relations with a man. I'll bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you want to them." Now, people point to this and go, this is what the hospitality standard was like. If you took in a stranger, you protected him at all costs. And if that cost you your 2 daughters, so be it. Okay? Now, that I'm just saying culturally, I know. Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I got a daughter too. I'm like, yeah, no, good luck, guys. Good luck. All right? You're on your own. I did my best. But this is the idea of this protection thing. If you've seen the movie Lone Survivor, has anybody seen this? Or better yet, if you've read the book, which oddly, that's the one book I've read that I actually watched the movie too, because I don't do that normally. That lone survivor in the book, it really accentuates that he was under the protection of that house, and that family was going to die before they let the Taliban take that soldier. Okay, and that's just an extreme case, but this is that implication of what it meant to have that hospitality standard. Okay, don't do anything. Oh, verse 9. Get out of the way, they said, adding, the one who came here is a foreigner, but he's acting like a judge. Talking about Lot. You're a foreigner. You don't belong here. Who do you think you are? Now we'll do more harm to you than to them. They put pressure on Lot, came up to break down the door, but the angels reached out, brought Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the entrance of the house, both young and old, with a blinding light, so they were unable to find the entrance. Then the angel said to Lot, do you have anyone else here, son-in-law, your sons, daughters, anyone else in the city belongs to you? Get them out of this place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against his people is so great before the Lord that the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Remember, they came to investigate. How long did the investigation last? Not long. When the men of the city, all of them, the whole population, young and old, come there, and Lot has to offer his 2 daughters to, and that didn't even satisfy them. It's like, yeah, end of sentence. We're going to tear this thing down. We're going to destroy it. You need to get out of here, okay? Which, I love the picture of the angels here, all right? Because these aren't floaty little guys with sort of sashes and wings and little harps and stuff, all right? They go out, they grab Lot, pull him in, and blind the men so that they're stumbling around. They can't find anything. And he's like, all right, let's go. We're out of here. Get up. Let's go. At daybreak, the angel, I'm 15, sorry. At daybreak, the angels urged Lot on, get up, take, if somebody says, I'm going to destroy, if an angel comes to my house, I'm going to destroy the city, and it's like, hey bud, it's like getting your kid up for school in the morning. Hey bud, time to get up. 5 more minutes. No, I've come to destroy the city. Can we leave now? That would be can we leave now? Because I'm good. I don't need anything else. But it's like, get up, come on, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away in the punishment of the city. 16, what does it say? But he what? What is the matter with this man? Seriously, why in the world would you hesitate in this moment? Does this tell you how deeply the hooks were into Lot? Even though he just had to offer his 2 virgin daughters to this crowd, he still is hesitating. He still doesn't want to let go of this culture. It's just, it sounds insane until you go, okay, this person trapped in this addiction, are they any different than this? Do you see the addiction of our culture, the addiction of the world is so prevalent? Demas, Paul's friend, Demas has turned away from us because he loved this world more than the gospel. And this is that idea of the hooks that can get into you in this thing. He hesitated, but I love, this is one of my favorite passages right here. Because of the Lord's compassion for him, not toward him, not around him, not for humanity, for this guy right here. For the Lord's compassion, his hesed, his faithful love. The men grabbed his hand and his wife's hand and the hand of his 2 daughters. Then they brought him out and left him outside the city. That should be your prayer. God, love me enough to grab me and pull me out of something that I don't need to be in. And you have absolute permission, God, to grab me, grab whatever you need to, scruff of the neck, all right, whatever, and pull me out. Do not let me stay somewhere where I'm hesitating, because I would rather be in your will than not. And that's, again, I love that verse. That should be one of our prayers all the time. They brought him out, left him outside the city. As soon as the angels got them outside, one of them said, "Run for your lives." I think at some point he's got to get the message. This is not going to end well. Don't look back. Don't stop anywhere on the plain. Run to the mountains, or you will be swept away. But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please. I'm chunky and I can't run." All right? So he says, "I can't run that fast. I won't make it. I won't make it." Wah, wah, wah. All right? And eventually God goes, "Okay, get in that city over there. You can't make it to the mountains. We need to do some cardio every now and then, Lot. Come on now." But what happens? What does his wife do? She looks back. Now, is that just, I look back and, it's God's so mean, he turned me into a pillar of salt? When it said she looks back, is that just, she just happened to glance accidentally? She forgot something and went, pillar of salt. I remember my dad went to Israel one time, and he brought back a chunk of salt from the area that was supposedly Sodom and all that stuff. He goes, this is Lot's wife right here. I was like, that is so cool, Dad. All right, we're just licking it and stuff. Like, oh, that's Lot's wife, man. Don't lick Lot's wife. So we always had a joke about that, all right? But she looks back. Now, what does this mean? Obviously, it's not just a glance. It's not just a physical looking. What is she doing? She's been told over and over and over, and yet she still is doing what? Yearning for what's back there. Yearning for the culture rather than to be protected, to be removed from this. Even the compassion of God literally pulling her away, she still looks back. And that should tell you the power of the addictions of this culture. And that's why you've got to pray, God, I want your compassion. You grab me out. Don't let me do this. Don't let me turn back. Okay, 21. Let's go 21. Is that good enough? Yeah, I can't run to the mountains. That's good. He said, all right, I'll grant your request about this matter. 21, hurry up, run to the city, for I cannot do anything until you get there. Therefore, the name of the city is Zoar. 23, the sun had risen over the land when Lot reached Zoar. Then out of the sky, the Lord rained burning sulfur. Does anybody have a different translation on that? Rained burning sulfur, or is everybody burning sulfur? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I wasn't sure if somebody varied on it. On Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord, he demolished these cities, the entire plain, and this is just south of the Dead Sea. If you're not sure where, if you didn't know where Sodom and Gomorrah, it's just south of the Dead Sea. Okay. All the inhabitants of the city, whatever grew on the ground, but his wife looked back and became that pillar of salt. And early in the morning, Abraham went to the place where he had stood before the Lord. So Abraham, you got to understand, Abraham is north of this. Okay, he's up in the Jordan Valley. So you have the Dead Sea, you have Sodom down here. So Abraham gets up that morning and looks down, and what does he see into the south? Sees this smoke just coming up. And what's his first thought? What do you think? Who was he negotiating for? Lot. I know that's where he was. And what do you think he's thinking? Is he okay? Did God save him out of this? Did God rescue him? Just the heart of Abraham. All right. He looked down to 28. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah and all the land of the plain, and saw that smoke was going up from the land like a smoke of a furnace. So it was when God destroyed the cities of the plains, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the middle of the upheaval when he demolished the cities where Lot had lived. Who did he remember? He remembered Abraham, so he saved Lot. Okay? Why? Because Abraham loved his little bratty nephew Lot. Okay? So again, you just have to keep coming back to, all right, what's the character of God? He loved, this is his guy, Abraham, and Abraham loved Lot. So we went, you know what? I like Abraham. Let's save Lot. All this effort just to save him. Now, here's an interesting concept, though, I want you to think about. Because people want to argue that Sodom and Gomorrah was not destroyed because of this sin of male homosexuality. Okay? Go over here with me on this. Hold your place there. Go to Ezekiel 16, because I want you to see where they get the argument from and me kind of undo it with about 2 seconds of Bible study. Ezekiel 16 in verse 48. Ezekiel 16:48 says, "As I live, thus saith the Lord," or the declaration of the Lord God, "your sister Sodom and her daughters," and let me back up for a second. This is written 590s, all right? The Babylonian captivity has begun. The people, Jerusalem has been destroyed. The captives have been taken to Babylon. Ezekiel is writing to them at this moment, okay? So this is 1,000 years, over 1,000 years after Sodom, and they are in captivity, all right? "Your sister Sodom and her daughter have not behaved as you and your daughters have." Now this, careful, because I want you to see this, because this is where they say, no, it wasn't homosexuality, it was this. 49 says this, "Now this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, plenty of food, and comfortable security, but didn't support the poor and the needy." All right? So what was the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah that caused God to send down burning sulfur and to destroy the place? Remember, the cry against them was what? How big was it? Immense. All right? This is overwhelming cry. Because why? Because they had pride, lots of food, and comfortable security, but didn't share or support the poor and the needy. So God sends burning sulfur on their city because they didn't have a food pantry? Does that sound accurate? And what's really easy is when you stop reading in the middle of a paragraph, what can you do with that? You can make it mean whatever you want. And so if you stop reading right there, yeah, what's the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah? Was it homosexuality? Was it male homosexuality? Was it rampant, violent male homosexuality? No, it was, they didn't share, the cans of soup and stuff. That's what it was. So that's why God got so angry. So that's the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, do you think that took place in Sodom and Gomorrah? Yeah, I would think so, all right? If you have rampant male homosexual rape gangs running around, I don't think the food bank is high on the priority list, okay? But what happens if you read the next verse? What could happen to your theory? Could it get thrown off a little bit? Yeah. They were haughty, okay? Hubris, arrogant, proud, and did what? Abominations. What else? Anybody have a different word? Detestable. Okay. This is the word toeba in the Hebrew, but bedelugma in the Greek. It's vile things, and this is what homosexuality is described as. So they were haughty and arrogant in the face of God, in the face of the angels, literally, and did detestable things before me. So I removed them when I saw this. Remember, what does God say I'm going to go do? I'm going to go investigate the cries against me. I want to see what they are doing. They see what's going on, and God does what? Destroys them because of their haughty arrogance and their detestable acts. Now, what happens again when you stop reading at 49, though? If you're trying to justify homosexuality and go, no, homosexuality is not a sin, that's just they're making up stuff. See, Sodom and Gomorrah, the only problem was they didn't have a food pantry. And I always say, read one more verse. It's not rocket surgery. It's like here, it's right here. It's right there, black and white, okay? Detestable is always described as rampant sexual immorality. Not just homosexual, but heterosexual as well. And it's also tied to idolatry, which what does Paul do with Romans 1? He marries those two things. Yeah, you worship the creature rather than creator. Men give up their desires for one another and women as well. So he's always comparing this idea of homosexuality and idolatry are always interconnected. Okay, so you can think through that eventually on your own. Okay, good. I just wanted you to see that in case anybody throws that line at you, you can go, keep going, read 50, okay? All right, 30, right? All right, this is weird. Lot departed from Zoar, lived in the mountains along with his two daughters because he was afraid to live in Zoar. Now, what's happened to his wife? Got no wife, okay? So just he and the girls. Instead, he and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. Then the firstborn said to the younger, because like you do, our father's old, and there's no man in the land to sleep with us, as is the custom of the land. Come, let's get our father to drink wine so that we can sleep with him and preserve our father's line. I'm not going to make any Arkansas jokes right there, or Kentucky, or any other state. I'm just going to let that go, okay? But, yeah, that's where we go with this thing, okay? And so the Moabites and the Ammonites people come from this little arrangement right here, okay? So when we talk about the land of Moab and the land of Ammon, and the Ammonites and the Moabites, and they did that, you can always go, ooh, I remember how this started. This could not be good, all right? But here's the thing. God always in some way protects the Moabites and the Ammonites because they are the descendants of what? Or the family of what? This is Lot's family, which is Abraham's family. So they are sort of a special little class over here, okay? All right, 20, right? Because we got a promise, right? And we laughed about it. What was the promise? What was going to happen? Why are we laughing? Come on. Sarah's going to have a baby. 89-year-old, 90-year-old Sarah, she's going to have a baby, all right? From there, Abraham traveled to the region of the Negev, okay? This is pretty much the Gaza Strip, okay? So think, they went from the Jordan Valley, all right? So Sea of Galilee, Jordan, Dead Sea, Sodom and Gomorrah down here. So he's in the valley, and he's going to go over here to the Gaza Strip, to the Negev, okay? Goes to the Negev, settled there between Kadesh, which is where the spies left from to go and spy out the land. From the south, they went up. And Shur. While he's in Gerar, Abraham said about his wife Sarah, she is my what? Sister. Okay. Now, has he played this game before? Yeah, last time there was a famine in the land, and he went where? To Egypt. He goes there. He knows Pharaoh is going to kill him to get his 65-year-old haughty wife, okay? Just think about that. I mean, Sarah was a good-looking woman. I don't care what you say, all right? Now she's 24, 25 years older. And what does he do? She's still my sister because she's still a hottie. I don't know what it was. You got to give props to Sarah, all right? She's my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, had Sarah brought to him, all right? Think Bathsheba right there. 3, but God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, all right, you're just asleep, you're the king, you're sleeping, all of a sudden God shows up in your dream. You are about to die because of the woman you have taken, for she is a married woman. Now that might wake you up. You're about to die. For Abimelech had not approached her, so he said to whom? God in his dream, okay, Lord, would you destroy a nation even though it is innocent? Didn't he himself say she's my sister and she said he's my brother? I did this with a clear conscience and clean hands. I had nothing to do with this, all right? And God's going, I know. But here's the thing. Why did God intervene right here and right now? What if they carry through with what they might have been carrying through with to carry? We got fertile myrtle ready to roll, all right? What happens if Abimelech sleeps with, I know, I went there, didn't I? Yeah, kind of one of those nights, all right? Like I keep telling people, we have far too much fun in Genesis. So what happens if Abimelech sleeps with Sarah in this moment? And even if nothing happens, what could be the implication? Whose kid is this? Is it Abraham's? Or, I mean, we don't have, fertility tests back then or paternal tests back then, okay? So God is doing what? God is doing what? To protect the line of the man that's going to die on that cross for you and for me. He's absolutely protecting it. No, Abimelech, you're not going to do this. I know you're not guilty, but I just wanted to scare the crap out of you so you don't sleep with her, okay? All right? 6, then God said to him in the dream, they're still dreaming, he's still arguing in the dream, which is funny to me. Yes, I know that you did this with a clear conscience, have also kept you from sinning against me. I'm here. I'm not going to let you do this. And again, lead me not into temptation. Again, another prayer that should be on our lips all the time. God, in your compassion, grab me and drag me kicking and screaming away from the things that will destroy me. All right? Therefore, I have not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, know that you will certainly die, you and all who are yours. Your entire city is going to get wiped out. And what just happened a couple of days earlier, just down the road? The burning sulfur thing? Yeah, I ain't playing. God just went, All right? Early in the morning, because you don't want to wait, right? It's not, get up, time for school. All right? Early in the morning, Abimelech got up, called his servants together, and personally told them all these things, and the men were terrified. Then Abimelech called Abraham in and said to him, what have you done to us? How did I sin against you that you have brought such enormous guilt on me and my kingdom? You've done things to me that should never be done. Abimelech also said to Abraham, what did you intend when you did these things? And of course, Abraham's typical excuse, I thought there's absolutely no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife, because she really is my sister, and she really was his half-sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. So when God had me wander from my father's house, I said to her, show your loyalty to me wherever we go, and say about me, he's my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and cattle and male and female slaves, gave them to Abraham. He's making out like a bandit on this little con, isn't he? All right, Egypt, he gets all this stuff. Now Abimelech's giving him all this stuff. And what is God doing for him? Blessing him and blessing him. Now, is he earning this thing? Or is God just that good? Yeah, God's just that good, all right? 15, Abimelech said, look, my land is before you. Settle wherever you want, okay? Again, is he saying, here's a home for you? Here's your land now, Abraham? No, what is he? Because he's going to be this for 400 years, right? I'm going to be a sojourner, and then I will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. So he never has his own land. He's always going to be a sojourner. So take any land you want. He said to Sarah, look, I'm giving your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a verification of your honor to all who are with you. You are fully vindicated. Translation, I didn't touch you. All right, and here's money to prove it if you need to know that. 17, then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves so that they could bear children. For the Lord had completely closed all the wombs in Abimelech's household on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife. God goes, don't mess with me. I'm trying to have a kid who's going to have a kid, 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 who's going to die on the cross so that Bubba doesn't have to face the wrath of God. And that's how much he cared about me. And that's how much he cares about you guys. All right? So I wanted to just kind of rush through these stories and just to see the providence of God and the hand of God in some funny and some cute and some interesting and very interesting ways. All right? When we come back next week, we will look at Isaac and his birth and his almost sacrificing, so, which is really cool. And we'll actually look at this Sunday as well. We're going to look at the covenants. We're going to look at the covenants of God and just trying to line those up and point those out to you guys. And probably do Lord's Supper. I think we're going to do Lord's Supper on Sunday as well. So I'm excited about that. Cool? All right. All right. Let me pray first and we'll go. Father, thank you just for your character, Father. Just the more I read through Genesis, the more I read through the Word, it continues to remind me that you are not some far-off, distant God who just started this thing rolling and just is waiting to come back someday, that you are intimately involved in our lives, that you see our righteousness and our justice and the lack thereof, that you remember us when our kids are sick, when our kids are hurting, that you remember us when people wrong us, that you remember us just when we don't do anything but we're about to do something stupid, that you're so compassionate toward us. So, Father, I pray right now for each person in this room that you would just grab their hands this week when they approach that time where they're walking in a direction that you don't want them to be, that you would lovingly remove them from addictions that they've been fighting for years and years and years, that your grace and your mercy would just give us freedom over those things. Father, again, I thank you for the love you showed to Abraham. I thank you for the providence you showed the protection you gave to Sarah in the midst of Abimelech's house, just so that you could maintain that beautiful, perfect line from Abraham to Christ so that he could die in our place according to your written word. I thank you for your sovereignty in that. I thank you for the beauty of that. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a great night.